Welcome to With Honors, your go-to source for insight into our class and into our unique perspectives in literature.
We'd like to thank our host, the pulchritudinous Jason Crockett, and today we're diving into symbolism within literature, both modern and past, with
Katie
and Amberlynn, leading experts in Honors English 10.
Get ready to learn how things can be different or similar than they seem, based on different cultures and minds. So sit back and relax to enjoy our deep dive into Honors English minds.
Cool. Well, today I'm talking to Katie and Amberlynn, and we're going to talk about some symbolism today. You all wanted to start off with talking about our summer read this year, Shelby Van Pelt's book, Remarkably Bright Creatures. Katie, overall, what did you think of the book, Remarkably Bright Creatures?
I thought it was a bit confusing, to be honest. It was very mind-boggling how it switched from perspective from one person like Tova to the octopus Marcellus, and then back to Cameron, and then to Ethan's point of view, and it was just all over the place. I felt like if it was a little bit more down like a timeline kind of route, like this happened then, she's talking now.
Would you have been happier with one consistent narrator instead of jumping from perspective to perspective?
I don't think I would. I think it would be like a little bit better if it was just like two narrators instead of like 4 or 5.
Amberlynn, overall, what did you think of the book, Remarkably Bright Creatures?
I think it was really good. I mean, I read a lot and like the multi point of view things, like switching back and forth between perspectives. So I was pretty used to it. So that didn't really affect like my reading much, but I know like a lot of people have said the same thing about it. But I think it was pretty hard to get into. But about like the end of the book, it was like really interesting for me.
The kids who were on my last episode said that they thought, or one of them thought, that Remarkably Bright Creatures was pretty predictable. She said she's into thrillers and mysteries, and she said, nah, I had this one pegged from the first few pages. Did you all feel like you knew what the book was going to be and be about from the early on, or did it unravel itself to you?
I felt like when Cameron came into play, it was like very like click, light bulb was on, everything like that was her grandson, but she doesn't know it.
I agree with Katie, actually. I mean, it took me a little bit after, like, Cameron was in the story. It took me a little bit to kind of, like, see what was happening, but it was pretty predictable.
I can't wait for Shelby Van Pelt to hear this now and hear my students all say, it was predictable.
Oh, no, it was so good. It was so good.
What kinds of things do you typically read?
Romance books.
I knew it. Who's your favorite romance person?
Lauren Roberts.
I don't know that name.
She recently released a series, like Powerless series is what it's called.
Okay.
It's like the best book I've ever
read
ever. Yeah, it's so good.
What really gets you about Powerless?
It's like not predictable at all. Like there's like a ton of plot twists, but it's not like overwhelming amount.
Okay.
And everything's just super like well written, well described, and I love the characters.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Where are you with Sarah J. Maas?
I need to get into it. Mom wants me to read it.
Don't know anything about it yet.
Not yet.
I don't know anything about Sarah J. Maas. I don't know anything.
It's kind of daunting starting it because there's like 18 books that all like intertwine with each other. Yeah.
Katie is like on pins and needles grinning. Are you a Sarah J. Maas fan?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Tell me about it. Why do you like SJM?
I just like her style of writing. I'm not really into the book, The Court of Thorns and Roses yet, because I haven't had time to read it with English assignments and Caesar and Gadsby and everything. But I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna finish it.
Is she like your go-to author, or?
I felt like if you were just like a person that didn't want too much not appropriate things in a book, that would be the one that you would go to. But I think I'm like Colleen Hoover more.
Oh, that's the one, It Ends With Us. Is that right?
Yeah.
What about you? Are you a Colleen Hoover person?
Nope.
Oh, why are you not?
I read It Ends With Us, and I tried reading It Starts With Us. It Ends With Us was like, it was good. Mm-hmm. It's just, maybe I'm just not a contemporary, like, romance kind of person.
I got you.
But I didn't like what the book was about. I don't like her style of writing.
Okay.
nothing against like her as a person. I'm sure she's a great person. And the book was good, like in theory. I just wasn't for me.
All right, cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about Remarkably Bright Creatures as well. You wanted to bring up some symbolism about it, Katie. Like, this is the big picture. Do we talk a lot about symbolism in my class?
We talk about symbolism a lot in your class. I don't know that we've talked about it with Remarkably Bright Creatures as much, but I think we have mentioned it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We talked about this book at the very beginning of the year, right? This was our intro. So we really didn't get to flex much about symbolism or anything, especially because it was just week 1. So, Katie, if you are like giving next year's honors kids some pro tips, he's going to have you read Remarkably Bright Creatures. He wants you to talk about symbolism. What are some symbolism things you think we should explore with this book?
I'd like them to keep an open mind about the octopus being Tova's alternate person, like her other half to herself that she doesn't know she has. So Tova's a very collective, gonna do this, planned out this way. Marcellus is I'm gonna go do that and don't know how it turns out.
How else does Marcellus give us a perspective that Tova doesn't?
He keeps an open mind about things that he finds in the aquarium. So when Cameron comes along, Cameron loses some things that look very personal, and he just shows them like in his tank, like on display for Tova to find.
Like he even knows this is a connection between you two. He sees a fundamental connection between Tova and Cameron that you and I physically can't see. And it's like, hello, you two belong together. So he wants to connect us. Katie, what's another symbolic thing that you think that we should bring up out of Remarkably Bright Creatures?
I would think this to be symbolic is her friendship, her connection with an octopus, that she thinks she's talking to him and that he's talking back to her. Just a relationship that we as people or as readers, we can't see, like the relationship between Tova and Cameron that Marcellus sees, but they can't.
Marcellus is like an alternate personality or an alternate perspective for Tova, that she, through human eyes, sees the world this way, but Marcellus, through his wiser octopus eyes, sees things in a different way. He sees a relationship between Cameron and Tova that Tova can't see. What other like connections exist here that Tova can't see for herself or that Cameron can't see?
I feel like the connections that they both can't see is how Cameron is so much alike to Tova, but they're both kind of blind to like their similarities. And he also sees connections between, they like the same people, like Ethan's both in their lives and they don't realize that.
I agree with that. Do we ever experience characters in the spring semester who are blind to the obvious things right in front of them?
Yes.
What usually happens to those characters?
They sometimes find their way out of the cave.
But usually
they end up not.
Dead. Yeah, dead.
Usually they are made to suffer for their blindness. That's true. But Van Pelt gives us a positive, right?
Yeah.
Amberlynn, what do you think is a symbolic take for Remarkably Bright Creatures that we should talk about?
Honestly, I think the ending is super symbolic. How Marcellus, Tova brings him to the ocean to like see, because even though like they can't speak to each other directly, Tova like knows, like understands that he wants freedom, especially because he's always like running about and, you know, risking his life to go explore. So
that's
and
true.
It is the end of his life, and she wants him to like have what he never could in captivity. And then Tova kind of ends up free as well, like free from the weight of like where her son went, because she finds Cameron.
What happens to her son, or what happened to him?
I believe he went missing for a while, just out of nowhere.
That's true.
And
He never came back, right? But
Fishing
ultimately,
trip?
that's right. Ultimately, we find out that he drowned, right? Because of an accident. That's right. So oceans can be symbolic too.
Yeah.
I mean, settings and territories. Gardens are typically symbolic of life, deserts of death. Oceans can be symbolic of life. And yet with Eric, I mean, if the character goes under the water and never comes back up, that's death. That's not rebirth or baptism. If Marcellus is a symbolic aspect of a personality, like the wise owl. Animals can sometimes be symbolic, right, of these traits. What kind of animal do you think would be Katie's perspective? Like if we're looking at a wiser view that maybe Katie doesn't have for herself, or maybe a worldly understanding that she doesn't yet realize for herself, what would be her animal persona?
I think, are we talking like every animal?
I don't know, yeah.
As like, almost like cliches, it sounds, I feel like a goat, honestly.
She's got a goat spirit animal that is her perspective on the world. Why the goat?
They're just super like bubbly and like always like everywhere at one place, like at one time. And that is Katie. She's in like 8 different clubs and she does dance. And then her mom being the advisor of NFA, she's everywhere all the time and she's always got like so much energy. And I feel like goats are very much like that, and loud.
And Katie's loud. What would be her alternate then? The side of herself she doesn't yet know. If she's the goat on the surface, the alternate perspective she doesn't yet know. What animal might be lurking there?
Maybe an owl?
An owl?
Yeah.
Which is not going to be jumping around excited. It's not going to be highly involved. Why the owl?
Well, owls have like a very, like physically have a very wide perspective of things. And for the time I've known Katie, she's pretty like, likes to see like every perspective of everything.
And they're creatures that are supposed to be symbolic of wisdom as well as strength. They're predator hunters. They've got great vision and everything.
Very intelligent.
Katie, if Amberlynn had a spirit animal aspect to her, what would be her animal?
I kind of think a lemur.
She's a lemur? Why?
She's just she does a lot of jumping around. She's very like, I wouldn't say bubbly. She has her off days sometimes.
From time to time.
She's very like happy when she wants to be, but she can be mad when someone makes her mad. And,
she's exuberant too. Yeah.
And I feel like that just embodies her. I could see that a lot.
You also, like, you've said before how you have experience raising lemurs too, right?
Yes.
So you are the domesticated animal expert. She's the wild animal expert out of this friendship. The lemur would be good for that. What animal perspective has Amberlynn not yet realized for herself, though? Her mature animal aspect.
I can see you being an emu. Oh. I could see her being an emu or some type of bird, because I feel like she would grow in her wisdom, but also be a little petty when she wants to.
And an emu is another kind of exotic animal. All right, Amberlynn, what animal aspect would Crockett have? Let's see how well you all know me. Symbolically, Crockett is...
Got any ideas, Katie?
You're so intimidated. I'm not even going to look. You all just think about that.
I kind of see him being a bear.
I could see that.
Okay, what kind of bear?
Grizzly bear. Or like a polar bear. Polar bear for sure. They're very territorial, very protective.
Is Crockett very territorial and protective?
In some like certain situations.
I like that.
Yeah.
How am I protective? How am I territorial?
For example, like earlier, you talking about reading and Jane. I feel like that's protective in a sense.
Definitely going to be protective about my daughter. Okay. Katie, what animal aspect have I not yet realized for myself?
Probably a golden retriever dog.
You think there's a golden retriever aspect to him, he's just not found it yet.
Yeah, because you can have your like happy days where you laugh and cut up with people, but you also are like very get to the going.
Yeah, the very polar bear days, right?
Yeah.
I think my brother, my younger brother James, I think he's definitely a golden retriever. He loves everybody. Everybody loves him. He's never met a stranger. Go to the beach with him. He's making friends with everybody on the beach. Me, I'm like the house cat that just glares, right? So he might be the pet dog, but I'm the pet cat who's like, I want to go be by myself right now, that kind of thing. Amberlynn, let's move over to this. What about other classical literature? When do you see symbolism in classical literature in this class that you think next year's kids should probably be aware of that?
I feel like classical literature is probably like with symbolism, you'll see it most within like colors or like maybe even like places.
Can you give me a specific story that we would use as an example for that?
Masque of the Red Death, for sure.
Okay. Tell us about that. Why colors and why places in Masque of the Red Death?
Probably just all of the different rooms representing different like stages of life.
Well, what happens in Masque of the Red Death? Because next year's kids haven't read it yet. They're not familiar with it. Katie, do you want to give us the synopsis of Masque of the Red Death? What happens?
So it's during the time of the plague, or the bubonic plague. This king wants to flaunt all of his riches around, so he throws a party with different colored rooms with different stages of life. So one room is colored a certain color for youthful, baby kind of activity. Then you got the childhood, then you got the teen, then you got the old person, and then you eventually have this one room at the end, and there's just one guy in a mask standing at the end, and he's represented to be the plague, killing everybody at the party, even the king. And the king wants to fight back against him. Like, he tells his soldiers to like go get the man in the mask. It ends up blowing up all in his face about wanting to like have a party, show off all my riches, being blind to the aspect that there's a sickness going around, that you don't really need to be around people.
Big picture, though. Why do you think that we teach Masque of the Red Death in 2020's high school America? We don't live in a time of plague right now. 5 years ago we did, but right now we don't live in a time of plague. We don't live in a time of masquerades with fancy masks necessarily all the time. Why teach Masque of the Red Death now? Why does its symbolism still hold up?
So it definitely correlates to like kingly godly figures not seeing their own faults that are standing right in front of their faces, and they end up reaching in like ultimate downfall most of the time.
Is that a very human story, Katie, you think?
I do, because most teenagers today are often distracted with the luxuries that they have now, but they also are missing the fact that they're 16, 17 in today's society, where they can go and do and be with friends and live in the moment. And I feel like some teens are trying to plan out their future where they're missing their present day selves.
Poe's story is probably pretty much a social commentary, right? What about, do you think that world leaders or local leaders are often blinded to things? Maybe business leaders, family leaders, whatever, are blinded to things because of their position?
I do feel that way, because most like important people or celebrities often do most of their things. Like, I don't want to bring him up, but I would say Diddy.
Who?
Diddy.
Oh, here we go.
Most celebrity figures like Diddy honestly didn't see his downfall coming, because he wasn't thinking about, oh, what if I get caught with doing all this illegal stuff, and with all of these parties going on, they're not going to know anything. And he was just blinded by his extravagance and all of his fame, money, and stuff like that, that he didn't ultimately see that he was going to get caught eventually.
Holy cow. So I didn't even make that connection between Prince Prospero and Diddy being the same story, but it's the same story. You have a wealthy celebrity who thinks that they can be rich and party in their way and get away with it.
Parties, yeah, that was one of the things that was like going on. He was throwing parties that had like a ton of other celebrities there, and they were doing very illegal stuff.
And ultimately, their consequences catch up to them.
Yeah.
And now you have all of this fallout from it. Do the corrupt always get punished?
In a way, yes, they do. It might not always be as bad of a punishment as they deserve, because there's definitely some people that end up like okay. And, you know, some people don't really deserve a happy ending for not living a decent life.
What do you think? Do the corrupt always get punished?
In some way, yes, because if someone found out that you were going around doing all this illegal stuff, or like doing that, they're probably going to tell the police or tell an authority, then you're going to get like put in jail. But others, like not celebrities or normal people doing illegal stuff, or like celebrities that don't do that bad of stuff, like talking bad about someone or posting something inappropriate, it's always going to get either shut down by the social media platform, they're going to get hate comments, they're going to get lose loss of followers, and their fame's not going to be as high. And ultimately, I feel like they just hit their climax. And then when something bad happens or they do something or they get caught, it just plummets.
It ultimately catches up to them?
Yeah.
Do you think that Edgar Allan Poe's story offers us the promise that the wicked will be punished and the good will finally see a good outcome?
In some way, I do think that, because Prince Prospero didn't think about all the things that was going to happen. And Edgar Allan Poe made it seem where he was blind to everything and everyone, and how some people are today. They're blind to everyone else around them. Like, who is this? I don't want to talk to you. And then, Prince Prospero does the same thing. He didn't invite any of the common folk because he thought that they contained the plague. He invited all the important people, like other kings, other queens, noblemen, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Amberlynn, do you think Edgar Allan Poe promises justice or punishment for the wicked?
I think yes, because in the end, all of these people that were supportive of this corrupt king wanting to show off all of his wealth, and in a way rub it in the common people's faces by not inviting them. And then...
Not even just rub it in their faces. They abandon them, right, to the plague. Mm-hmm. So it's the ultimate slight.
Yeah, and instead of all of these common people being, killed because they've done nothing wrong, all of the wealthier, I guess you could say, famous people that were indeed corrupt, and they got punished instead.
I definitely think Edgar Allan Poe, when he shows us the end, who dies?
Mainly the king, but everyone else dies.
Everyone. So, Edgar Allan Poe, I don't know that he gives us a story that's don't worry, Amberlynn, we're going to get the bad guys and the good guys will win. Poe's story is also everybody's going to get it, right? That it's a human outcome eventually. You think that your wealth will save you. You think that your wealth buys you a ticket out of this. It doesn't, right? You can party, you can be corrupt, you can do everything. Sooner or later, this world will catch up to your mortality. That's a tough theme to chew on, I think, for a lot of people. So symbolically, you've got blindness. You've got the life cycle of the rooms that you've mentioned. Prince Prospero representing the wealthy who think they can get away with whatever. And ultimately the Red Death itself, the blood, is the consequences. It's death. Anything else symbolic about Poe that you want to talk about?
I feel back to the promising justice for good people and punishment for bad people. I feel that could sort of resemble doing bad things, being a bad person, can have an effect on not just yourself and people that are doing these things with you, but other people too, the innocent common folk, and they were all minding their own business, and nobody got a happy ending because of this corrupt that was happening.
Yeah. I remember teaching this story 5 years ago when we came back from COVID spring, and that fall semester, everybody was wearing masks, and we were on alternate A-B days where half my class was here on Tuesday and Thursday, and half was here on Monday and Friday. And it was a weird scenario. Also, our summer read that year was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. Have you ever heard of this? It's about a sudden flu-like plague that erupts and kills 99% of the world. And the survivors in Canada, there's a small group of survivors who become a traveling Shakespeare performing group, and they go around performing King Lear and sometimes Hamlet and Midsummer Night's Dream and stuff, but they go around performing Shakespeare. And it was a weird scenario to come back and be so we're living through plague, and we read Plague this summer, and now children let us turn to Masque of the Red Death. but all had different symbolism to them and all had different outcomes and stories. So now we've come to the end of this. What crossovers exist between a modern day novel like Remarkably Bright Creatures and Edgar Allan Poe's The Masque of the Red Death? Are we seeing thematic crossovers? Are we seeing symbolic connections, character connections?
I think the blindness would compare each of them to characters between RBC and Masque of the Red Death by Prince Prospero getting punished by his blindness to his character actions and stuff like that. But Tova gets rid of her blindness by realizing that there is an obvious connection between Cameron and goes on to live more days, knowing that she has more family other than an octopus that she found in an aquarium.
Metaphorical blindness existing between characters. That's a good one. Amberlynn, what do you think?
The Masque of the Red Death and Remarkably Bright Creatures, like their symbolism of like different stages of life are similar in like Cameron is like younger, so kind of in the earlier-ish stages of his life, even though he is, I think, like mid-20s maybe. But I mean, considering on a scale of 1 to about like 75, that's still pretty young. And Tova she would represent the middle of this, like, life stage, because she is still elderly, just not looking towards death like Marcellus is.
That's a good, because from the very first page, Marcellus tells us he's dying, that he's only got so many days left.
I think it was "Darkness suits me" was that first line.
Oh, my gosh. And you're talking about metaphorical darkness, symbolic darkness, and that's definitely a crossover with Poe as well. Tova is definitely in her later years. Like if we're talking about symbolic seasons, Cameron in his late 20s, early 30s, certainly acts like spring. He's probably supposed to be summer, but the immaturity of it is that he's still in spring, not willing to cross over. And Tova is definitely, I think, first characterized in the winter of her life.
Yeah.
But if she can make this connection with Cameron, there's still years ahead of life left for her. She doesn't have to end it right now. So that's probably her first real connection with Marcellus, whether they intuit it for themselves or not. They're both in their winter, but Marcellus could save her by showing this connection between the two. That's really good too. So if we get a class pet, you all think it should be an octopus or a lemur?
Saltwater tanks are hard.
They really are. Yeah.
I feel like keeping anything like properly is kind of hard though.
You know, we used to have a class pet in here.
Really?
A couple of years ago, Miss Copeland bought us a class fish, one of those betas, and we named him Good Dog. And he was a real good dog. And he lived on my desk in a fish bowl. And we had a winter storm come through, and I had to have a co-teacher come rescue him because we were out of school for like 9 days. And Good Dog lived for like 2 years, and he sat on the corner of my desk. Good Dog. And then Good Dog passed away, and guess where we buried him?
Outside.
Right out there. Good Dog's buried right outside that window. One of my former students, Sam, buried him right out there. And then a batch of kids brought us Cosmo. Cosmo only lived for a couple of months. He wasn't as enthusiastic. He wasn't as hardened as Good Dog was. And then after that, your mother suggested, no, Crockett, what you really need to do is, and she was wanting me to get like a long tank to put in here and get some lizards or hamsters or something in here.
Lizards are pretty easy.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah, I've had.
I just
my
worry
fair
about
share,
if the
so.
power goes out, would they be able to stay warm enough? Maybe I'll consider a little lizard and name him Smog.
That that wraps up this episode of With Honors.
Thanks for joining us as we explored the symbolism of the modern, past, and universal system of archetypes of literature.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to subscribe to the show and leave us a rating on your favorite podcast platform. There will be more episodes next week with another insightful episode. So until then, take care and keep listening.